Once upon a time, well, possibly before time was created, in the well-known province of Saskatchewan, there was a brilliant young girl named June. She was most clever and determined in all things, proving at an early age that she was indeed a force to be reckoned with. Now, some may say life in Saskatchewan is simple, but it certainly wasn't easy in those days, and June had to tap into all of her skills and talents just to survive. And although June had many wonderful and amazing talents, over time she was never able to find that one right job or career to apply her skills at that would make her feel fulfilled and complete. She longed to find the passion to go along with the talent she showed in so many areas. Despite missing this one element in all her skills, June took solace in her one trusty friend, Patty, the squirrel. Yeah, it was weird that June had a friend who was a squirrel. But hey, when you live in Saskatchewan, you take what you can get in the friend department. Patty, full name Patty and Care, was a very sophisticated squirrel. French, in fact, like most great squirrels are. Patty had been orphaned from her family at birth during the Great Reorganization era, where families and friends alike were separated when the lands just spontaneously divided. The rest of the Aunt Care family was rumored to have been living far away on top of old Mount Albert to Health Services, or Mount Albert for short. Mount Albert was known as the deadliest mountain in all the land. It was plagued by avalanches, rough terrain, and other untenable dangers such as the prickly cacti the locals called budgets. It was said to be overrun by an indigenous wild animal called the run rate, and it was reputed to be almost impossible to climb. Now, no one knew for sure just how the Aunt Care family would have gotten seconded to the top of the deadly Mount Albert during the Great Reorganization, but hey, it was a confusing time for many. To make matters worse, Patty was horrifically terrified of heights. This made her a leper in the squirrel world, as how could any self-respecting squirrel, French or not, expect to amount to anything if they couldn't even muster the courage to climb a tree? Outcast by her kind and only able to live off the nuts on the ground, Patty and June recognized in each other a mutual sense of loss. June not being able to put any passion behind all of her amazing skills, and Patty so terrified of heights that she couldn't even jump rope without peeing her pants, never mind even thinking about trying to find her long-lost family way up high on Mount Albert. And so it was. Patty and June became the best of friends, or secret squirrel friends as they like to call themselves. They did everything together, including continuing the search for June's long-lost passion. June, with Patty by her side, embraced and tried several different career paths along the way, each time hoping to find that missing passion come alive inside her. First, there was the hockey years. Yep, June and Gordie were quite the duo, and although the fame and fortune of the NHL was appealing, June just didn't feel it was a fit. Not to mention that Patty was having a hard time keeping her nuts warm while spending all those hours in freezing cold hockey arenas. Still looking to make a name for herself in the ice, June next turned to curling, where the rink temperature wasn't as cold as the hockey arenas in Saskatchewan. And it wasn't long before June became a big hit in all the major curling circuits. Unfortunately, a large falling out between June and Schmirler the curler forced Patty and June to move on to other things. Not giving up, June continued to set out to find her true calling. She threw all she could into almost every job she could find. She dabbled in the arts, became friends with Martha Stewart, tried her hand at construction. And while many of these careers held the promise of a fulfilling life for June, she still didn't feel these were the right fit. In fact, the only thing June felt was consistently right in her life was the presence of her dear friend, Patty and Care. Her connection with Patty was the one thing she held most dear, and she was grateful to Patty for all her years of support and encouragement while June was searching the world, trying to find her passion. Suddenly one day an idea came to mind. June had spent so much time trying to find that one destined path that would bring her joy and happiness and fulfillment. Maybe she'd been looking too far outside of herself. Maybe what she needed was to do something with what she already had. Selflessly and more determined than a calzone stain setting in on a white dress shirt, June grabbed Patty and threw her into her backpack and raced towards Mount Albert. Kicking and screaming and not knowing what was going on, Patty demanded that June put her down and tell her what she was doing. Begrudgingly, June stopped and explained to Patty. Patty, You've been my friend since the very beginning of my journey to find my destiny and my passion. You never once complained and you never asked for anything in return. So maybe it's time for me to be there for you. So I've decided we're climbing that mountain and we are going to find your family. Patty protested. But June, you know I'm too scared of heights to do that. Besides, what about finding your passion? Passion smashin', June explained. Patty and Care, this time it's about you. And with that, they were off. Patty the squirrel stowed safely in June's backpack, which was stocked full of special nuts called Nutavan, which Patty ate anytime she felt anxious about the heights they were climbing. It was a tough trek, to say the least, a true test of all of June's skills and talents. The terrain was barren for the most part, but there were small pieces of that local cacti budget scattered throughout the trails. Now June knew that the smaller budgets were the deadliest, so she cleverly stayed clear of them. Large budgets weren't too much of a threat since most of those had become extinct in the early 1980s. So once they got past the small budgets, June knew that they would pretty much be in the clear. Occasionally they heard a few rumblings from the top of Mount Albert that they thought might have signaled the return of that wild run rate beast, but it seemed that for the most part the run rate had all but disappeared, likely killed off by the alpine tribe of warriors known as the Tight Timelines. After many days and nights of trekking up the mountain, they finally made it to the top. And right there, at the peak, to welcome them, was indeed the rest of the Endcare family, just as legend had said. The Endcares were so happy to see Patty, they grabbed her and June and hugged them so tight that they thought their heads would pop off. It was at that moment that June began to feel a warmth and happiness rising from her toes, all the way up to her head. As it reached her face, her cheeks were set aglow with a big fiery red that was emphasized even more by the contrast of the powder blue sweater she was wearing and her light blue eyes and dark black hair. At last, June knew she had found her passion. Helping Patty and Care had required her to use all of her skills and talents, and even though she was deathly exhausted and drained by the time she reached the top, she felt such joy and happiness in doing this for her friend that she realized she had found her true calling. She had at last found her passion. As June turned to leave Patty and the Endcare family behind and started her journey back down the mountain, Patty reached out and begged June to stay. But June shook her head and said, Patty, carrying you up Mount Albert to health services has been the greatest challenge of my life. I've had to use all my skills and talents, and just when I thought I couldn't go on anymore, I somehow found the will to keep going because of how important I felt it was for you to get to the top. And seeing you here with your family has been all the reward I need. I know what I need to do now. I need to keep helping people, lifting them up when they feel low, helping them overcome their fears when they are scared, and making a difference in the lives of others even when the challenges seem insurmountable. This is my calling. This is my passion. And with that, June hugged Patty and bid a fond farewell to her beloved Patty and Care and headed down the trail. June went on to climb many mountains after that, each time taking someone just like Patty and Care with her right to the very top, overcoming unthinkable obstacles and always finding new ways to make it through seemingly impossible situations. She went on to become the greatest mountaineer of all time, reaching mountain summits so high that often only the eagles could meet her gaze. She became known as Junebug the Mountaineer, a determined Saskatchewan girl who never gave up, a pioneer in taking others to the top, a legend, a mentor, a confidant, but always a friend. She is June Mackenzie Clark.